Hello everybody and welcome to the last video of the year and also to DOScember. Yep, we're doing it again. Even after the debacle of last year, I'm sure if you watch that video you know exactly what I'm talking about. But yes, this is where we come together to basically celebrate MS-DOS, the computers it ran on, as well as just maybe exploring DOS related things. This video this year is similarly complex to last year as I didn't really learn my lesson at all. But I'll tell you one thing, this time I've got a real drink. This is actually beer, so let's raise a glass and let's do some tinkering. Oh god, that's so much better. We've definitely stepped the game up this year. Yes, it's Christmas time again. That also means it's DOScember again. We did this last year when I tried to create a DOS gaming console, though unfortunately I didn't actually get it finished, which remains so to this day, which is visually apparent if you look at my video list. Thing is though, what could we create this year? What could it possibly be? Well, I decided to stick with the theme of things you got at Christmas, and this year it's going to be MP3 players. Yes, they're not about much these days, but this is what we used to use for listening to music on the bus and such. Now everything's pretty much done on the phone. Maybe you got a generic MP3 player, or if you were really lucky, maybe you got an iPod, or even a Zune. That's a joke, nobody wanted a Zune. But how on earth are we going to do it? Well, I asked myself the same question. How hard can it be?
Don't say that!
So let's have a look at what we might do to make this happen. Now I'm not entirely sure where this idea came from. I do remember before that watching Drago1's video on putting an MP3 player type application on DOS for a laptop in his car, and that really intrigued me. The application in question is MPXplay, and it seems to be a really nerdy way of playing your tunes. But he seemed to get it done eventually, and it was a really interesting project. At some other point later, I discovered the Intel Galileo and discovered that it had basically what amounted to an x86 CPU in the form of the Intel Quark running at about 400 MHz. And then the idea started turning. Maybe I could get one of these and actually make an MP3 player that ran MS-DOS, and then in turn MPXplay. I even got an Intel Galileo, and this is it right here. It's basically a development board, but I soon realised, well, I can't really use this because I have absolutely no idea how to get anything on it going, how to add a screen or even sound. So, for a little while I shelved this idea. That was until I saw a video by the Rasterai which showed some kind of Arduino type device with an x86 processor on board. He turned this into a mini DOS gaming machine and it seemed to play games pretty well. At the end of his video, however, this led on to a video from a man called Evan Bowler, or Ivan Bowler, I'm not entirely sure, sorry about that. He created this thing called the Tiny Llama, and this was basically a small board that used that same CPU, but had pretty much everything you needed, crystal sound chip and the lot. It also played games very well, so I knew this was the way that I had to go. So let's check this project out and see what we come up with. Hopefully this will be the very thing we need. As any good project has, this has a GitHub, and it was full of all the information we needed to get going. There was information about how to acquire this, but I decided to be different and went with the people I knew I could trust with this job. PCBway. PCBway is the one-stop shop for PCB manufacturing. They have a great variety of solutions for your PCB projects, with build service available if needed, for prices starting at only $5. But that's not all. PCBway also provide other manufacturing services such as CNC machining, sheet metal fabrication, 3D printing and injection molding. And if that wasn't enough, why not check out their shared projects section? You might just find what you're looking for, like these really cool Christmas ornaments. So why not check out PCBway.com for all your PCB needs. Don't delay, buy today. So let's have a look at what we got. So this is it. This is the Tiny Llama, at least the version I got done. It turned out pretty well. I got mine done through PCBway. It was originally provided through another circuit board manufacturer, but of course I wanted to try and see if I could put it through PCBway, and it seemed to work. I did ask for help with certain things because this was a really difficult thing for me to do from both the people on the Vogons forum page, I'll link to that, and Mr. Evan Bowler himself. I didn't get any replies on either one. They're all busy people, so I quite understand. But check this out. I remember it was really funny, like thank you to the PCBway team, of course. Because they helped me through this. There was lots of wrangling over how to get this done last year, and it was a case of like whenever they would say something like what's this component, where does this go, I'd be like, oh, it's okay, I've got one of those at home. Really in my head I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I bumbled through it though, and somehow I got this done. Sorry I didn't actually take any pictures of a lot of the equipment that I got alongside this, but I'll put in some pictures right now. Basically I got some CPU rails as well as the graphics card, which goes on the back here. There's a couple of things missing even now. There's the amplifier that goes here. You don't actually need it for this model in case, well, if you're not putting one of the Raspberry Pis on, you don't actually need to put it on there. But all the rest of this stuff was soldered on by my dad. That was the battery clip as well. He helped solder the CPU rails. Something went slightly wrong with the chip. Now, I don't really know what it was. These chips are incredibly hard to solder. It took him quite a while and there was a little mishap with a pin, but that all got repaired and it should work absolutely fine. It's been buzzed out. And there was like a little oddity with some scratches on the PCB. I don't know where they came from. I assume they came from the factory because they certainly didn't come from me. So I think the only thing I really need to do now is to add the software, but first of all, we need to get the CPU on. This was the package that contained the CPU module. I've still got a few of the bits in here. There it is, folks, the brains of the operation. I've looked at the picture of this and I know which way around it goes. I would not want to zap this at this stage. God no. And also this is the graphics card. I'm just going to show you that. Look at that, okay? So it's basically like an M-SATA thing. Well, it's not an M-SATA at all. It's MPCIe. And there you've got the cable. It is VGA. There is like an HDMI version of this, but from what I saw on the Vogans thing, it may have required like extra work, extra programming to get it to work in this. Having said that, maybe it was dead easy. I don't know. I'd already bought this by this point. So yeah, we're going to have to convert this somehow when we actually go to power the thing up. It's funny to think this is an entire system. Looking at the picture on the GitHub site, B2 goes in the top right corner. Right, hold on, I'll just try and get that on. After a nervous few moments, I got it on. It didn't seem to be going on there, but you do have to press it. Right, that's probably one of the more difficult bits. I think it's all plain sailing from here. I have discovered a problem. There's nothing to actually hold this down. Yeah, normally you'd put that in there and you'd be able to hold it down with something. But I think I can solve it. You know what? I'm an absolute idiot. There's the things right there. I think that's okay. I mean, it is standing high on that end. We'll soon find out if it doesn't work anyway. So let's just see if this fits in here. There we go. Probably the way things are going to end up, that is going to be back here, and I've got a solution for the screen, which is going to be over this way. Man, we are sort of crammed for space a bit here, aren't we? Nah, be good. We'll be fine. Probably. It's going to remove that for the time being. Now we can start programming the thing. I put some standoffs in the holes to raise it off the surface of the desk. First of all, we need to refer to the GitHub, which has all the instructions on there for actually programming the BIOS. I fetched a USB stick and then used Balena Etcher to write the image to the disk. We need to do this before anything else is going to happen on the board, or else it just simply won't recognise any storage. Alright, so you meet me on a black screen. Everything is connected up. I'll just insert a little picture of what everything looks like on the desk, because it's sort of like out the way of the main view of the camera. Because I'm not actually filming this, I'm just going to show you what comes on the screen. Actually no, it would help if I plugged it in. 1 second. Oh, it's on. It's on, people. 3, 2, 1. Oh, hang on a second, I've just turned it off. What the hell? Hang on. Doesn't seem to be showing anything unless the scaler isn't working, I don't think. Hang on a sec. Maybe the graphics card isn't in. I took another look at the graphics card and lowered it down by 1 slot by taking out some nuts. Hopefully that was it. Right, I've changed the position of those standoffs where the graphics card was. Maybe it just wasn't making good enough contact. Alright, there we go. Still nothing happening. I honestly don't know what's going on with it. The scale is definitely working, as the capture card isn't showing a no signal message, so unless it's just a really weird resolution. I do have a monitor that's capable of showing, it's got VGA ports on it, so I can try that, I guess. Just taking this video on my phone here. I might be an idiot, because you see this blue cable here? That cable is the one that goes to the KVM, and the only way that that can work is if I was to switch to the input that's on. It may be that this is perfectly fine, but I'm just simply not seeing anything, because the F12 that I'm supposed to be hitting is not doing anything on account of not even going through to the tiny llama. So I'll try this again. What I may have another go at is like a separate keyboard and mouse, and maybe I have a monitor under the desk that has VGA, so it doesn't run through a scale, which might be the thing to do. I don't know, I'm kind of worrying a little bit here. Alright, so we're trying again. What's encouraging is that the graphics card does have a light on it, and everything's lit up on the Panda as it should be. It's Panda, no, Llama, whatever. But no, it's still not working. This is just annoying. Right, we're going to try this again. Everything's plugged up. Off we go. Oh my god, it works. Shit the bed. Alright, okay, fine, great. Panic over just my shitty scaler. Oh god. Honestly, man, I was so worried. I'm gonna drink a rather stiff drink. See you in a bit. With that slight panic out the way, it was now time to flash the BIOS. I'd already grabbed this from the GitHub, so I just put in the stick that I'd flashed previously and got to work. And it seemed to actually work fine, although as we find later it might not have done. Next we can move on to the installation of DOS, and once again following the guide from GitHub, although as we find out, things can go wrong on the hardware, but I wanted to make sure that the concept was going to work first of all, so I made a virtual machine in VirtualBox, and then managed to make the program load automatically, and it seemed to work pretty nicely. I wondered if maybe it would be easier now that I have a working virtual machine, if I just basically push this onto the SD card and then try to load it up. I mean, it can't hurt, right? So in this instance, I had to come up with a format that actually would work for this. The default format for storing disk images on VirtualBox isn't compatible with this, or maybe it was, I just didn't know. So this time around I created a VHD and redid the installation. I then used an application called HDD Raw Copy to push the image to the SD card. This is sped up, of course, my PC is not actually that good, trust me. Okay, so we're having a couple of problems here. At first, it seemed like I hadn't flashed the firmware correctly, and then I found out actually I hadn't done that, so now it's been done. And it actually looks a bit different when you start it up. Yep, so now it does that, and I can actually safely press the F12 for boot menu, which if you go into here, BIOS Updater, it goes back to this, which is what you flash with. Problem is though, it doesn't seem to be seeing any SD cards. And I first found that out with the installer for DOS7, because it does actually boot on here, and I'll show you. Yep, there we go. It actually went straight in, so if I select install DOS7.1, there we go. That's pretty much it. It's the DOS7 installer. Wonderful, you might think. Okay, let's go through it. I agree, blah blah blah. Next. Continue. Can't detect the disk. I promise you there is an SD card in this, it's just not picking it up for whatever reason, which is really annoying, so maybe it's just not formatted. Alright then, we'll just quit to DOS. Right, so back in the thing here, if we go back to this, so the instructions say to do fdisk. Alright then, let's do fdisk. Yeah, we'll do that. Display partition information. Okay. Well, that's interesting. It only seems to be picking up the disk that's inside the enclosure that's used for the disk images, which incidentally I wiped accidentally. That's really strange. I'm starting to get worried now. So I'm just going to show you what actually happens if I go in via just the fdisk thing to see what we can find. Right, so we do fdisk. No fixed disks present, and that's the error that I get every single time. So it's not detecting any SD cards. And the problem is when I'm putting this in here, I can get it sort of like partitioned and everything, but there seems to be some issue trying to actually properly format the thing. This tiny llama only has 2 ports on it. I can put a keyboard in, which is essential, and I need a piece of storage as well as the other thing. Because you can install on this, you can either use an SD card or a memory stick. But this will be a problem if I can't. I don't even know if hubs will work. I can try that. Well, here's my crusty, dusty USB hub that I just stole from my main PC. We'll try that out and see if it works. If it can detect 2 bits of storage, hooray, we might be in for a chance. But Jesus, all this is supposed to be easy, man. Got everything plugged in, hopefully it works. Oh god, things are falling off the table. It doesn't seem to want to recognise a USB hub. In the same way as I did with the SD card, trying to move the disk image that I created on VirtualBox to try and move that to the stick, and if that's bootable, that's probably the way we're going to have to leave it. But hey, look, I'm trying, folks, I'm trying. Apologies as well for moving the camera, it's on an overhead thing and it just keeps moving, for Christ's sake. Right, the stick's been loaded, let's try it. Hey! To minimize the chance, okay. It looks like there's an EMM error. So it could be that there's something wrong with the partition, but it does show that this is actually possible. Quite why EMM 386 isn't working, because it's meant to work, I do not know. Let's try this again. Should be the first option, I think. Alright, so we've got an EMM problem. That looks like it could be something that we need to resolve. I'll be right back. Alright, so it looks like there actually is some kind of fix for this, or something. It looks like you've got to change something to do with high mem, is it? High scan? I don't know if I understand all this. Good God, this thing's old. It's like year 2000 or something. So I'm going to try removing that from the config.sys and see if that makes any difference. Right, I've just taken EMM86 out of the equation. Possibly it was the wrong thing to do. I don't know. Just trying. EMM isn't even on there anymore, dude. Alright. Try again. This doesn't make any sense. High memory is not in it. Okay, right. This is ridiculous. Alright, so I've loaded the installer purely onto the stick. I don't know if this is going to work. We can try partitioning it, I guess. No. Right, I'm out of ideas, pretty much. Right, I've been doing some stuff where basically I've erased it entirely. We're going to try a reinstall. This is actually getting to the point where we're able to format it correctly because I was getting error 61. Right, we'll try this again. Let's do it. It's going to try and put DOS on it. It's got an operating system on it. A very small subset of DOS. I think we're there nearly. Very nearly. Alright, I've just copied the files back. I have a feeling we'll get the EMM message. I don't know if that was just because it was like it had a problem before or what, but we'll... Right. Now, I don't know what the hell that is. I'm not trying to load FreeDOS. What are you talking about? I don't want to do that. This is not right. Okay, let's try this again. Okay, so I've formatted this again. So it's formatted with no setup files on it whatsoever. That's not how you do that at all. There we go. File not found. Okay, it's empty. Completely empty this time. Let's try this out again. Not bootable. What the hell what are you talking about? Alright, so this time I've installed all the installer files to this. Maybe it can install onto itself. It's already formatted correctly, doesn't need that. Let's do this instead. It's not a bootable disk. Alright, camera's on the conch again, but I've got another plan. I've split the volume that the disk images are on. I've put a little tiny FAT32 partition on there. If I can get it installed and it all works, brilliant. And then what we can do is transfer that partition over to a different disk. If it'll work. I don't really know. This makes no goddamn sense. It doesn't work. I've got this plugged in and all of a sudden my keyboard doesn't work. Like, what in the hell is going on? I don't think this is possible. I think this whole project is it's just down the tubes. I can't do it. It's broken. It won't let me actually load anything on here any old way. It's just not working. I think this is an absolute fail. I think we're just going to have to abandon this till next year. After I had a little word with myself, I approached the situation far more logically and decided to look at the physical aspects of the board. Something didn't add up. Alright, we've gotten to the bottom of it. The problem actually lay with the SD card slot itself. Those little solder connections, 2 of the pins weren't even soldered down, and one of the pins was actually the very thing that you require for detection of SD cards, so it was never going to work. It's been fixed, and I just want to show you something. Yeah, that has got a little chime as well. The speaker works now. There we go. The thing at the top, of course, and the one below it, that's basically the memory stick that's plugged in. But number 3, that's the SD card slot. So I think what we should do is get on and format this and see if we can install a damn OS. My god, it's been long enough. I love that little startup tone. Tiny normal updater. F-disk. Yeah. Oh wait, that's completely the wrong drive. What am I talking about? Hang on, restart. It's not detecting the disk. Hang on a sec. Yeah, it's not even seeing the other disk. Yeah, so I think that SD card is pooped. Not a problem. The only other smallest disk I've got that's actually free is a 64GB one, so we'll see how that goes anyway. That's all 60 gigs worth. Let's try this again. See? Yes. Okay. Ah, yes. There we go. Yes. MP3. And there we go. Let's check it out. Perfect. It's completely blank. Right, now we can install stuff, hopefully. Alright then, off we go. Hey, there's the DOS installer. Let's do this. Oh, this is exciting. Right, next. Yes, yes, yes. Agree. Continue. DOS file system is not active. Make it active. Yeah, sure, why not? I just want to call it DOS. Just DOS, I guess. Yup. Full installation. We want the whole thingy thang. Access DOS? No. Okay. This is like dead exciting, legitimately. This has not worked this far, like ever. Add-on setup, cool. What other goodies can we have? Add-on packs, sure. M-pack, multimedia pack, yeah. Not yet, because we've got to do that later. Quick view. I don't even know what that does, so no. MPXplay, sure. No. Don't need that. Don't need that either. Chinese add-ons. Another add-on. Well, let's see what else they've got. Nah. Cancel that. Sure. Good idea. Ah, one of these causes problems. DOS can use this no problem. I mean, it should be able to do this one, right? If it doesn't, I'll just reinstall it again and I'll just say don't load. Don't load. No CD-ROM drives for this thing. CT mouse. Awesome. I cannot believe it, but okay, let's go. Would you like to reboot? Abso-smurfly. Ah, yeah, sure. I've got to disconnect the drives. That's sensible. Right, so it was trying to load, but it wasn't quite working. I figured it out. The reason why it didn't work is because when it was installing previously, it was installing onto the Zalman device on a test partition that I'd done a little while ago as an experiment. In the end, I had to install it on an optical drive, because of course you can't write to these things, and it just worked. Like literally I formatted the SD card, I installed it, and well, it's on there now. I did have some EMM386 errors, so we're not using UMB or anything, but I'll just demonstrate what this does now. It's, oh god, it's a good sight to behold, I tell you. There we go, DOS 7.1 is on. I'm so pleased. So now we can actually install the sound card. And this is seemingly where we come a cropper once again. There's just no end of issues with this project, it seems. When trying to install the firmware, I only get so far, and when entering the commands I'm supposed to, I get this addressing error. Extremely irritating when you add it to all the things we've been through, but hey, one more mountain to climb, right? I even tried loading the sound driver, what good I thought that was going to do, and of course it did return the fact that it couldn't find a sound card. Alright, let's investigate. Jesus. But at the very least I can demonstrate that MPXplay does run on this, although I do have to use a command line argument because there's no sound card, so that was happy enough with that. I then altered the autoexec.bat to make it load a default every time you start the thing, and that seems to work fine. Brilliant. Just a shame I can't get any sound out of the damn thing. I looked into the chip programming issue and it seems to boil down to potentially not being soldered correctly. And sure enough, we had another look at it and found that there were actually some pins that weren't even connected on the board. These are the ones near the end of the CPU. They weren't making any continuity towards where they needed to be at. At the time, however, we were investigating the sound chip as being the problem, although it seems like we might have been wrong, as when we tried this, we got an error, but it was slightly different. At this point, this part is taking up far too much of my time and I need to move on for the moment. We can come back to it though. One thing I do need to sort out is the screen, because how else are you going to see what's going on? I picked up this WaveShare model and it seems to fit the bill quite nicely. It's a 3.5-inch HDMI enabled screen, comes with a cable, a power cable originally, and these adapters which are for Raspberry Pi 3 and below and Raspberry Pi 4 respectively. I did a test of it plugged into my main PC and it seemed to work out alright. Here it's displaying a screenshot of MPXplay, although it does highlight that the text is going to look pretty small, though I still need to interface it with the computer, so I've got this adapter from VGA to HDMI. It's a cheap little thing, only cost £4 at the time. I did find something on the internet, a blog, which actually showed this very one that was torn down. This would be really quite useful, as if this does work, I can actually put it inside this whole project. But let's just test it first, yeah? So I connected the Llama to the adapter with a back-to-back connector to minimise cable length. And then what I did is also connected the screen via HDMI. Turned it on, and nothing. I even checked the cables and everything else, and there didn't appear to be a picture on the screen, so I think possibly the signal being produced by this thing is just a bit off, and that's why it can't read it. Also, I had to dub this thing with a voiceover because I ruined the audio on the video. Well done, Stephen. So I guess we'll have to find another solution. So now we can move on to the actual casing, since we can't actually get the video to work. Here it is mocked up inside of Adobe Illustrator. Look confusing? Well, I'll just take you through it. Here's an image of the board right inside the thing. You can see how much bigger the enclosure is than the actual board itself. The board's only about 66mm wide and the casing's about 85 or so. In this casing I've put a few things in mind, like the screen for example, which is this module right here. So that's basically what you'll be getting. You have the front, middle and rear panels of this, which comprise the different layers of the actual thing. The intention is to make this out of laser cut acrylic, however I have nowhere near enough time for that, as well as I would rather mock it up in something else before I actually send it off, to make sure I don't make any mistakes with it. And for that I've decided to use some really thick cardboard, but first I need to print this. So I started off with some mount board. This is usually used for mounting photos to and then, well, sticking on the wall. I then covered it with double-sided sticky tape and then laid the images down. After which I just cut out the individual panels. And there we are. I then just drilled out some holes with a handheld Dremel type thing. And now just to screw it all together. Had to do this a few times as I kept using the wrong standoffs. But I got there in the end, and my, how it turned out. And here's the finished item. Jesus Christ. Okay. I think I need to address this. There's a slight problem with this in that I have neglected to include the holes on this second sheet that would have mounted the screen, but never mind that. Check out how absolutely chunky that thing is. A lot of it is because it needs to clear these switches inside. I think there's definitely something we can do regards that, because it's just way too much. And probably down the bottom here, I'm just going to take the screen out before I break it. Down the bottom, there's probably some space we can eliminate from there, though the connector is pretty much going to be jammed up against against this back panel. But it's honestly not until you actually get this in your hand and you actually build the thing that you realise, what the hell have I done? But you know what? At this stage, I'm just going to stay the course, pretty much, and we're just going to go for it, but not now, of course. But I mean, it does kind of look good. Now, I'll address the elephant in the room. Of course, there is a keypad missing. There's no way to control it. This would have gone down here, but I've just absolutely run out of time. I've looked at alternatives. I might put some on the screen here. I've looked at it from Tindy and from the PCBway shared projects of just some kind of tactile button style keypad. I'm undecided what I'm going to do there because they are mostly like 4x4. And I want maybe like a 5 or 6x4, and just more buttons than what's actually provided there. Batteries too are also going to be a concern because this is meant to eventually be battery powered. I have some in stock. So I got these ones. I've got this larger 4,500 milliamp. This slightly smaller but thicker one. How much is that? Oh, it says right there 5000 milliamp. And this small one here, which is probably more likely to be the one I use. Now this one, originally, like way back, I would have thought this one could have gone on the bottom, but that's probably just going to make it even more chunky, to be fair. Having said that, if I get a thin enough battery that's a bit long, I could put it alongside on the bottom level, just making absolutely certain it doesn't get pierced. But if I look with this one, of course the keypad's going to go up there, but there may actually be some room, possibly. It's going to be a tight fit because I've got the screen where it needs to be. Some room where I can slip a battery down the back there. So that would work as well. You could contain the battery there, as well as possibly underneath this section. Oops, hang on a sec. Just under there. Now that would mean you couldn't put the Raspberry Pi in, but also there is a gap like under the screen as well, which is sort of like that sort of arrangement. So it sits right under the sort of the fastening points of the screen. That might be something you could do, or multiple cells, because you could run all this in parallel. But as I say, I've completely run out of time on this one. I will just say, I might just end the project here, to be fair. Between the programming problems I've had, my own procrastination, and a bunch of other stuff, I think we've run out of time. I don't even know what to call this, because it's not a complete fail, because the concept will work. All I need to do is unite all these disparate bits that I know that work. Like the screen works, I know that. The llama works, I know that. The battery powered, will work once I actually get to it. So everything kind of works, just not together. And also there's those problems to fix. So that's what we'll do. We'll end the project here. It's not a complete fail, but it's not a complete success either. We're hashing things out. We'll fix it. So I think we'll go back to me at the start and we'll just say goodnight, I guess. Well, that's it, and that's the end of another year and another project. That video, at least the beginning part of it, was shot back in 2023, and it didn't get finished for, well, reasons. Not really sure why. In fact, I'm not really sure why I didn't produce videos for the entirety of 2024. This was the first and the last video of 2024. I mean, you can tell it's different haircut, got a new monitor. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. The project, unfortunately, as I mentioned, didn't go as planned, so it is a bit of a fail. But we will be back next year to finish it off, and I promise all of the part 1s will get their part 2s at some point, so don't worry about that. But I think all I have left to do is just wish you a Merry Christmas and have a Happy New Year as best as you can. I mean, I know there's going to be some people who can't, and I hope you're going to be alright this Christmas. But let's raise a glass, or a can, and drink to better times. See, I would, but this is empty now. This is lush though. This white beer can't be beat. Anyway, I've rambled on enough, even though it's not all that much. So, bye.